Post same sign. As always, let's start with public comment. Public comment. Public comment. The mayor. Yes, sir.
Well, we got an email from Supervisor Cardiel today, and he may mention this, but the historical marker at Shelby Road, I had called Max Lacy, and so he reached out to Max Lacy. It looks like it wasn't intentionally destroyed, but it is going to be replaced. That's the one subject I want to talk about. The second subject was that last Wednesday I got my shot. And I know there's a lot of folks in Madison, my age group and lower, that haven't got theirs. But I wanted to say that it was well organized and a painless procedure. And I want to thank everyone involved, and it made me proud to be from Madison County. Even Roger Berry was nice to me. That doesn't happen too often. Thank you.
Other public. What, he tipped you, Roger? Other public comment. Yeah. Other public comment. Anybody? All right, moving on. Mr. Howe, talk to us about the crew of the Bill Swinging Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm happy to report back. We made some progress. I'll just, there were really two things we accomplished since the last meeting. We scheduled and had a very productive Zoom meeting for VDOT, and also, thank you.
I should know. I work with microphones. Turn it on, right? We also spent time pursuing right-of-way interest with the landowners that are involved in the bridges. And so I'd like to report back on those two topics. We had a meeting on February 18th, and Mr. Hobbs has given you a memo. It should hopefully be in your packet, sort of detailing the results of that meeting. But it was with Renee, my wife, Scott Ela from Ducard Vineyards, and Dana Elsie, the engineer consultant that we had talked with, and Carrie Shepard and John Lynch from VDOT, and then Mr. Hobbs also attending. And we just talked about all the issues regarding the bridges and what might be done. Certainly, one of the key issues that VDOT expressed was that they have been maintaining the bridges for 60 years, but they actually have no right of way to that. And so regardless of whether they continue to maintain them or the county or a community group does, that is an issue that just has to be addressed. So we put that as first priority on the community group side to look into that. Mr. Hobbs also, in this memo, sort of put 3 paths toward improving or restoring the bridges. And I'll just read them, and then I'll comment on them a little bit. Plan A, and there's also in his memo, thank you, Mr. Hobbs, for doing all this. He was very, very valuable at this meeting. So there's 3 plans, A, B, and C. And he also listed pluses and minuses to these plans. So they are, Plan A is pursuing a traditional VDOT project. Plan B is a community group rehabbing the bridges under VDOT's permit. And Plan C is VDOT abandonment of the bridges with ownership, rehab, and maintenance by a community group. And on these plans, I would just like to make a couple comments. I think Plan A is just out, I would like to say. It's just too costly and too lengthy for the county and to really accomplish. Plan B has a community group basically obtaining the funding, contracting to do the repairs for the bridge and so forth. but the bridge would stay under VDOT, and they would be responsible for long-term maintenance and so forth. I think the problem with this is, again, it's a more costly alternative. And as it became clear in the meeting, and I think Mr. Yell asked VDOT directly at the last board meeting, did they want these bridges off their hands? And they really didn't answer. But Mr. Hobbs, you can correct me if I misspeak here. But I think during the meeting, it became clear that yes, that is the situation. They're happy to hand off the bridges to the county or the community group, and would be happy to do whatever paperwork and so forth is necessary to accomplish that. They really don't want to keep these in their inventory, I think it's safe to say. So and if they were to keep them in their inventory and have to maintain them long term, they have no funds for that, and that's something that they would have to deal with. So that sort of puts it down to Plan C, and I think from VDOT's perspective, they're happy to do that. So then the question is, can that be accomplished? And if VDOT is willing to turn the bridges over to the county or the community, I think we can accomplish that. I have to say that in the discussions here, Mr. Hobbs made a suggestion, which I would like to say is a brilliant suggestion, and that is if the alternative, if VDOT can't obtain the right of way to the bridges, or we can't, and they have to demolish the Lindsay Lane Bridge, that's going to cost them $100,000. Could they apply that money to the county or the community group to refurbish the Lindsay Lane Bridge and use it for future maintenance funds? And John Lynch from VDOT said he would look into that. It's possible. It depends on VDOT. So that I think is a great possibility. That would be a shot in the arm to make this project successful. Regardless of that, I would say that we have talked, and I'll just say a little bit more about that, to most of the property owners and to other residents around who are interested in the bridges. And there's no question, I think, that we could obtain the funds with or without VDOT and set up an organization to repair and maintain the bridges and even keep money in there. So it'd be a very formal setup. To at some point, the bridge had to be torn down because of damage and flood or something, there would be money to do that. So we would, be happy to pursue that. As far as the right-of-way issues, that's absolutely critical. And so we also pursued that with the landowners. So also, I think you should have in your documents two maps that again Mr. Hobbs assisted us with and prepared that show the locations of the two bridges. The one upstream, referred to oftentimes as the Meadows Lane Bridge or the Pottery Bridge. Essentially, there are two landowners involved on that on either side of the river. And on the second bridge, the Lindsay Lane Bridge, there are three landowners involved in that. The bridge sits mostly on two properties and just extends a few feet into the third landowner's property, just because of the way the bank goes. And there's a long ramp to level ground, but that property owner probably is lesser importance because that ramp could be changed if necessary. So there are really 5 property owners involved, and we spoke directly, had meetings with 4 of the 5 property owners, and I can say that 3 of the 4 that we met with are 100% behind a community group obtaining the bridges and raising the funding, managing them, and so forth. The 4th property owner, I think they expressed they'd like more time to think about it, and perhaps are just waiting to see, how it develops a little further. The 5th property owner, which is the one that is really lesser involved, we have not approached them yet, just simply sort of ran out of time. But so I would say as far as the right-of-way issues, all of those property owners so far are happy to do that, or we'll consider it depending on how things go. So, yeah, that's sort of where it stands. I think that we made some good progress. And so I guess I would just summarize, I feel the best path forward is probably if we can secure all the right-of-ways and raise the money, maybe with VDOT's help from the demolition money, to take care of these bridges, fix them long-term. I think the property owners are all very much, I can't speak for everyone, we're still waiting, but very much interested in it. And yeah, I'll sort of stop there. Thank you. Mr. Hobbs, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yes, sir, you did very well.
Okay, thank you.
Did VDOT give you like odds about them facilitating some funding towards us?
No, they did not. I would say,
Grimace or anything?
not a grimace. I would say, honestly, so Renee and I had thought about this, but I was like, no, I don't think we should like, but again, Mr. Hobbs he's very good. So he suggested it at the right moment. And I think John Lynch seemed actually very positive about it. I could be wrong. Again, you can correct me if your impressions were different, but he didn't grimace. He said it was more like, oh, you know, that's not a bad idea. So I got the impression, seriously, that, I mean, again, this is my impression. VDOT would be happy to get these bridges off their inventory. And if that's a way to do it and help, it's money they would have to spend anyways, and it just helps solve the problem. So I came away with a positive feeling from that.
All right. I got one more. If we abandon the bridges with VDOT, how do we get something we have abandoned to a foundation?
We don't have time. We can go get anything we don't know.
Well, I understand that. But how do we, if we were to go with that option 3, and they were to take it over, VDOT puts in the active maintenance they've been doing for so many years, how would they acquire rights to it?
The cleanest way would be for each of the respective landowners to grant them license of duration. That would probably be the cleanest and safest way to do it. I guess theoretically, we could execute a deed saying you have a deed on this property, which is nothing. I don't think that is very far. I think a better way to handle it would be to straighten up the issue with the landowners and proceed that way.
I would say we did, some of the landowners asked about that. And again, we're not legal experts, but we sort of said, well, it might be a donation. I mean, donate the land, or as you just said, it might be leasing. And basically the landowners that gave us a positive response, their sense was they're happy to do whatever is the best way to do it. And it may not be the same for all landowners.
So Mr. Chairman, my question would be, when you started with that line, if we were to abandon it, would it be incumbent upon VDOT to destroy it? So we want you to abandon it, but not destroy it. You know, does one lead to the other under their rules? You know what I'm saying, Mr. Hogg?
I would think we'd have that worked out before we get into some hearings and all that would have to transpire. That would have to be.
Yeah, I was just wondering, you know, if we abandon it, they would want to demo it, correct, to make damn sure they are off the books. But anyhow, so let's keep that in mind. And I mean, my other thing, this is very comforting to see something like this work out. Looks like to me, if let us get out of your way.
Well, we have to work together though. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, but,
Right.
but we're happy to do what we can to make it happen. Sure.
Very good.
Is everybody kind of, I mean, I think there's a lot more development that needs to be done. But I mean, it would appear that option 3 is maybe the option to go with, so that give it to a foundation or a trust or something of that nature. You don't have to fear it.
Yeah, if you set up a 501c3 so you can fundraise and stuff.
Right, right. Whatever is best. Again, we haven't explored all those possibilities just because until we could say secure the right of ways and make it actually be happen, then those are just, still need to be looked into at this point.
I guess at this point, Mr. Al, I mean, look at how to establish this foundation, 501c3, whatever it is. Keep working on the right of ways and we'll keep going based on what you tell us. Is essentially the way this needs to go.
Okay.
I do have one more question.
Can't argue with that.
So, Mr. Howe,
Yes.
would you all, is your intention to try to save both bridges or just the one at Lindsay Lane and let the other one play out and see what happens down the road?
No, our intention, and again, I think this is somewhat, based on VDOT's input as well, is to take care of both of them, because I think long-term VDOT, they said, this is small peanuts. They have much bigger bridges and issues to worry about. And so we'd like to make sure that they both are taken care of. And I think VDOT's receptive to that.
Greg, there's a lot of help looking into how we facilitate such things. Certainly. Does that seem like a reasonable direction to go? And VDOT's out of the bridge business, hopefully Madison County's out of the bridge business. Anything else on this? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yes.
All right, consent agenda, February 9th meeting.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion made, seconded, further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Going well. We haven't, when can we expect supplemental appropriations again, MJ? Next meeting, we're gonna do another big round, I'd assume. Is that right?
No, actually, no, there's not. I mean, there's one big number hanging out there right now, and that would be the EMS payroll. But there are not a significant number of supplemental appropriations. I mean, there's some things, there's not a significant backlog. There are some things that I think Noah's gonna talk to you tonight about, and I actually have a question too. I need approval on something to move forward.
Okay,
Because it's, capital.
all right. Okay, so maybe supplementals next month. Not far away. We're gonna go to constitutional officers, county departments, committees, and organizations. Mr. Wilkes is gonna tell us about the uniform statewide building code that's effective July 1st, 2021.
Okay.
Is this gonna be exciting?
Oh, you'll love it.
Good, good, that's what we're looking for.
It's overjoying.
Will the builders love it?
Probably not. As you know, from time to time, the state updates and revises their building code. They do it about every 3 or 4 years. So we're cycling around, and July 1, a new code's coming out. And that means everything from the residential to commercial, existing building, fire code, plumbing, electrical, mechanical, the whole gamut. The effective date is tentatively scheduled for July 1st. This is a long drawn out process. It started in 2018, and they go through this long process and then repeat it just to get everyone's input. And as long as there's not too many appeals, it will come effective July 1st. If they get X amount of appeals or flack from it, they have another waiting period. But hopefully it's July 1st. If not, it'll be another month or two behind that. Every time they do a code update, in adopt the new code is based off of a set of model codes from the International Code Council. So we're going to the 2018 codes. We started in 2018, and then the state of Virginia spends a lot of time making modifications that fit our state the best, because every state's different. We have certain things we're concerned about. So it's a long process. And there'll be hundreds, if not thousands of changes. That's just the way it is. But they created a, what they call significant changes. So I just wanted to update you on a few of them. One of them has kind of been in the news a lot for the last number of years. They have a new definition, emergency supplemental hardware. And this all deals with school barricade devices. This is a big issue nationwide, and Virginia's trying to get a handle on it, because to protect these kids, which I never thought we'd have to do it, but we have to look at it now. There has to be some process. It can't just be willy-nilly people do what they want. They're gonna have language in there on how to do it. And there's no set way, but the important thing is, and I'm on board with this, everybody involved is gonna be a part of it, from the sheriff to the fire to EMS, fire marshals and building code. You know, it's a big deal. It will come someday, you know, every school will have it someday. At some point in the future, they'll probably mandate it, but we're not there yet. Some of the other changes, this is not that big of a deal, but I like it. They're going to require energy certificates on new buildings. So you buy that building, you know what level it's been insulated to, and all the energy efficiency things. And right now at the state level, for the last couple code cycles, energy efficiency is their main topic. That's what they care about, saving energy. This next one is kind of a big deal for residential builders. They're going to mandate blower door testing. So they're going to have to hire someone to test these new dwellings to see how airtight they are. They can't allow so much air exchanges. And if they do, they fail. Energy efficiency again, and there's going to be a cost with it. And it's going to end up being rolled down. The contractor can't eat it, you know. It's going to be passed on to the consumer, but it's done. They have something I never thought I'd want to see. They put language in there for, I'm afraid to say it, tiny houses.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
But it is not even close to what people think that it means. It's nothing like the TV shows. There is language in there for these small dwellings, 400 square feet and less. But I don't foresee a lot of it happening, because you're gonna have to meet everything else. So we'll probably never see this, but who knows? There's been a big push over the last 5 years, tall wood structures, getting away from concrete and steel. They have ways now to build taller buildings out of strictly wood. And depending on what side of the aisle you're on, it's renewable energy. They regrow forests, you know, all this stuff. But there's going to be a big change in the code dealing with these structures. They got some changes for carbon monoxide alarms. Like when you have a fire alarm and, you know, fire alarm smoke detector in your house, if one goes off, they all have to go off. That way the occupants know something's happening. That was never required for carbon monoxide. Now it is. Now they'll all be interconnected, so everything goes off. Lots of rackets, so you know something's happening. Another big one for residential builders, ceiling insulation above the ceiling. Right now we're R38. It's about 12 inches thick. R49, it's done. It's going to be like 18 inches thick for your standard fiberglass type insulation. There are other methods out there, spray foam and all, but that's a big change, R49, and it's going to cost. This one, the next one, I agree with. It's called arc fault protection. For anyone not familiar, everybody knows what ground fault is. Water and electricity don't mix, you get shocked. The arc fault prevents fires, and that's a fact. Right now in the code, it's only required in bedroom circuits, which I never understood. Why are we only protecting bedrooms? Now it's going to be throughout the house. So if there's a fault anywhere, these new breakers are very sensitive. They can detect it and they'll trip and prevent fires. There's some changes to what they call the industrialized building safety regulations. We call them modulars. They've put some language in there, which I think is ambiguous, but shipping containers. A lot of people take these shipping containers and convert them to dwellings, building, anything. there's always been a path forward. It just meant engineers were involved. Now they've put it in here, it's still gonna be engineers involved, but they kind of clarified it. We don't enforce statewide fire prevention code, but the fire marshal does, but I forget what they said. The whole thing was rewritten, thousands of changes, but we don't deal with that. And the last thing is, once this is adopted, myself and our whole department have to go through code update training. And what I've always done is, and we're gonna do it again, hopefully COVID will be done. We like to hold a code update training for the community, for engineers, architects, builders, anybody who wants to come. I would prefer it to be in person. You can answer questions easier. I don't know how it would work virtual, but we're gonna do it anyway. One way or another, we're gonna do it. And we'll also I get a packet of the significant changes, a bunch of them, and we post it online. The last one we already posted online, but we'll do that as well. But I think having this code update training for the community and the builders is really big because they're gonna have to do it. It's state law. I'd rather have them do it right the first time, not second or third time. So I just wanted to give you an update on what's coming. And if you had any questions on it, a lot of it's really technical, but that's fine.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a quick one. So do we have anybody locally that does the blower test?
Not that I'm aware of, because it's not mandatory now, so very few people do it.
Right.
This code cycle, duct testing was made mandatory, so they pressurize your ducts, see if they're leaking. Well, this is the next step. Get the whole house now.
Okay.
I don't know of anybody. I'm sure Charlottesville is probably somebody, but
Yeah.
I think what they're gonna do right now, if you do the duct testing, if you're an HVAC contractor, you can test your own equipment. You get certified, you can test it, and give out a report, and we check it, make sure it meets it. I don't think this blower door is gonna allow that. They're gonna mandate a third-party inspector. Some things I agree with, some I don't, but they're there.
We've got a tiny house thing going. All right, anybody else got any questions for Jamie Welch?
I got one question, Mr. Chairman. So Jamie, how do the contractors in the county, how are they notified of this?
Of the code being changed?
Yeah,
Well, they don't reach out and tell the contractors, hey, a new code's coming.
right.
I've always believed if you're a contractor, that's your profession. You're supposed to stay up on it. But knowing a lot of them don't, we put out, when we get ready for our event, for the code update training, we're gonna put it, website, newspaper, flyer, any way we can get the information out there.
And
you know?
tell them when they come into your office too.
Oh, yeah. I've already been not forewarning, but tell them, hey, the code's coming, it's changing. You need to look at it because it's gonna happen.
Any other questions for Jamie Wilkes? Jamie, thank you very much.
All righty.
Yes, sir. While we're talking about building, I'm gonna steal Miss Fry's thunder. Chris Artelli wants to be on the Building Code of Appeals Board. Building Code Board of Appeals. He's our only applicant, Miss Fry. Anybody want to do something with that right now?
I move that we put Chris Artelli.
Yeah.
No, by us. We appoint this one. Yeah.
Yeah, I move that we put Chris Artelli on the Building Code of Appeals.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
What's the term on that? 3 years?
And it looks like we got an opportunity for one more person, Ms. Fry.
We do, and this that there's somebody that's supposed to be inquiring, but they just haven't made the move yet.
Yeah, being new to the community, I don't know a lot of people, so the ones I have met and talked to, certain ones I think would be a good fit for it. I'm gonna reach out to a couple more.
Very good. Thank you. I mean, when was the last time they met?
Building appeals are rare.
Okay. All right. All right. Ms. Wilkes gonna get us another applicant, so we got that one taken. Ms. Fry, you got anything else back there?
I do with Valerie, we didn't, CSB didn't send us out, they always do to recommend, and Valerie's term really expired in December. She filled in her expired term by Mr. Name, I'm not gonna say a name, but anyway, Mr. McGrath recommended that she be reappointed.
All right,
For
Kim, all
another 3 years, so.
right, what do y'all want to do about that one? Valerie,
Really sorry.
Valerie Ward on CSB.
I move to appoint Valerie Ward to the CSB board.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Ms. Fry. All right. Work our way around here. All right, Noah's next. Noah, tell us about the M20 ambulance upfit.
Good evening. So Medic 20 is currently in Indiana. It has not been COVID proofed per se. I can go through the list, but the summary version is there's a sliding window they can put between the cab where the driver is and the patient compartment. That's one of the big changes. We've also experienced some pretty significant rusting from the cleaning materials. And there's a quote that's part of this to be able to replace the screws and hardware. And we've changed the cleaning system. The summary version of that is it broke down into salt water, but it didn't tell anybody. So we were cleaning the trucks and then that would cause rust on that. I'm at 181% roughly with vehicle maintenance. A lot of that's due to the acquisition of vehicle maintenance for the rescue squad. So I'm coming to ask for money.
Well, we've been down this path before. You're asking for $5,996.89, right?
Yes, sir.
It would appear that if we have an ambulance, we need to put the stuff that's inside of it. We all want to do here.
Take care of it. I move to approve funding the EMS for additional $5,996.89.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. What else you got going on, Noah?
The other money request,
Good.
sorry, is to move forward with a second shelter for the ambulances. We got them sooner than I expected, and they're sitting outside. So that it is $8,877.75. I imagine there'll be a couple $100 on top of that for gravel if needed. This was part of my FY22 capital request and would like to move forward sooner than later on that.
All right. Yes,
I
ma'am.
actually think that both the upfit on the ambulance and the shelter, the additional money on the shelter, we have some money left over in the capital budget. We could pull it from a couple different places. I would recommend doing that rather than putting it in the it's already there. It means that we have to do a capital budget resolution next time. And I have a question. I have a request myself, so we'll have to.
All right. We're working our way around the room. We'll get back to MJ on that. Y'all want to pull it out of capital for this shed and the upfit? That work?
The update is something that's, it's like gonna be part of the ambulance, right?
Yeah, well, the ambulance will park under it.
No, not
No,
the shelter.
The upfit.
Yes,
It's like
Yes.
permanent.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry.
that is capital.
All right. So what do y'all want to do about this? How many of these things do we have now, Noah?
It's pretty. We
Yeah,
got one.
yes.
It's tall, wide.
Good, good. We're getting another shed. 8,077.79. What do y'all want to do?
Yeah,
Yeah, but we still need to make a motion to approve it.
Go ahead.
Oh. Livingston.
I don't know where it's coming from.
It's Noah. Go ahead. Even the mic doesn't like the money.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve $8,877.75. Is that right, Noah? For the shelters to be taken out of the capital improvement fund.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Noah, how many calls you running?
A lot, staying
Yeah.
busy.
Good.
Yep. Have one other thing. It is money
Why
related.
not? Why not? Keep going.
The building next to the EMS station, the poison polished, David James contacted me. So it sounds like they're moving out. It's roughly 1,100 square feet. And
All right, 1,100 square feet.
for $900 more a month. I'm going to work up a more official proposal, show you a diagram, show you what we would do with that. But this will give us an opportunity to be together.
You're essentially thinking of consolidating your space that's over in the shed by the rescue squad into that space.
Correct. Yeah. Because right now we're really separated from the crews, and to have my office, Deputy Chief's office, a supply room, we could use that space because right now the supplies are in the living quarters of the crew. So for $900, 1,100, 1,200, he wasn't quite sure on the square footage, but it's a significant amount of space, and we'd be together on that.
In your proposal, you're going to detail what it would cost to modify that space as well.
So, yes, I don't think David's going to replace the roof and do some interior. It depends on the lease term. So if we go 2 or 3 years, from the brief conversation, it sounded like he was willing to actually fix
Work with us.
Yeah.
Everybody want to see if get Noah to put together a proposal, come back to us promptly.
Yep.
Very good.
And final thing, I've gotten a pretty increased number of phone calls relating to billing for service. So our billing contractor is Ambulance Medical Billing. That's the name of them. And they're out of Paducah, Kentucky. So when residents and visitors get a mail from them, they see Madison County Board of Supervisors, Paducah, Kentucky. And a lot of times the mailing's asking for billing information, authorization to bill insurance, and they're like, whoa, this is fraudulent. So I've updated our website to try and describe that process better. I don't know why there's a sudden increase in the number of calls. I've been in touch with the billing company. They're altering the form they send out to make it read clear. But I just wanted to get the word out there that it is not fraudulent. And I've asked the billing company to come up with a better way to get information because Social Security number, confidential stuff you don't want to put in the mail. So they're working on that.
Do you have any questions for Noah?
Comment on that, in a way that's a good thing, because a lot of the people that are receiving the bills are the folks that people are being targeted. We have advantage taken of them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's try to deal with it, but at the same time, I suspect they're paranoid for a reason.
Yeah. And I'm glad to get the phone calls. I welcome them. I'm glad people are paying attention and, but yeah, thank you all for your support.
All right. John Sheriff, we hear that you have your badge now.
I do, sir. Shot.
That's the way. Is it a good looking badge, I assume?
You sure it's okay to come up here? 'Cause
Oh,
I'm not
yeah.
sure this place is gonna explode.
No, well, anytime.
Be gentle.
Yeah, I don't know here. Let me get this thing off for a minute. My word. Okay, not asking for money, so we'll get that right up front. Let's just go over the numbers real quick. Just everybody watches the BDH website, 528 to date cases in Madison, 21 hospitalized, and 8 people have passed away from the virus. The 7-day moving average is, if everybody's looked at, I know it's like CNN, you look at the ticker, but it's going way down where we're at basically last November before the holidays. So let's keep that going down and life is good. So vaccinations, everybody constantly wants to hear about that. 2,470 people in Madison have been vaccinated, 521 fully. We're scheduled for 400 more folks tomorrow, at the Madison Firehouse.
So looking forward to that. That'll be their second dose from 3 weeks ago. Also, the clinics that we have on the books right now are scheduled out till March 24th. So that's where we're at as far as planning. There's a group called Aging Together, and they're getting their act together basically to start registering seniors in all 5 counties in our health district. So I'm kind of optimistic that they might be taking over a big chunk of our hotline, all the people that we've hired to work, which they've been doing a great job, by the way. But at some point, maybe we can transition over to that, and they can help our citizens just the way we've been doing it for the last week.
Wouldn't this be, I mean, we talked about it, I guess, 2 weeks ago, about how to reach out to more people in this 1B category that are potentially without internet and don't see local news as well. And this is just a better way to capture a larger group of the population.
I think it is, but like I say, we're blessed here in Madison. We're small. Everybody sort of knows everybody. There's a lot of logistical issues going on up in Polk here in Culpeper. They're 4 times our population, but we're getting flyers out there and as much as we can to reach people that don't have online access. So that's kind of where we're at with that. I do, like just today, I checked on the phone lines. They've slowed down a little bit in there. They only get a call about every couple minutes, which is before it was just steady as they could go. And if that continues, at some point we can maybe address that and scale it back. But that's just that Aging Together group. We'll see how that goes. The only other thing about the vaccine is the supply is always an issue. So we plan and we try to plan the best we can, and the next thing you know, the weather's holding it up. There's a hiccup somewhere. But right now, tomorrow, we're supposedly got all our supplies ready to go for tomorrow, and we're just basically being told, stand by for your next supply. We'll let you know the Friday before if we have it. So, and the only other thing I wanted to bring up was highway safety. I know we've talked about different intersections in the county, but if you've ever gone through that Oak Park and O'Neill's Road intersection, I wouldn't say if you, I'm not a traffic engineer, you won't find a high volume of car accidents there, but the ones that you see, we just had an ejection there this morning. So, it's just one of those things where you wonder, is there somebody that can look at that and just, people will say traffic circles, people say flashing lights, people say rumble strips. I would think rumble strips could be easy.
We did that at Pratt's pretty promptly. Maybe that's a request that we can go ahead and get to Ms. Shepherd and move on.
Right, coming from your side of the house, it would be a whole lot more influential than somebody just calling up and complaining about an intersection. So I would strongly suggest that somebody looks at that pretty hard. Well, and it's interesting because I talked to the sheriff about that, and he told me that years ago there used to be a 4-way stop there, and for some reason there was more of a problem because I guess people maybe anticipated that, well, that guy's going to stop, I don't have to. I don't know, but he said that there used to be. Now, whether they want to revisit that again, that's for the highway engineers to figure out, and that's their ballgame.
Everybody, I don't know. Going from John Sherrod carries weight. Don't want to get Hobbs to reach what? Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, shiny.
Anybody with a hand, good luck. Y'all want to have Hobbs reach out to Ms. Shepherd and see about getting some rumble strips up there?
I mean, that seems like a cheap, easy. You don't have to just study that.
When we had the Pratt's deal previously, I mean, they really did. You got on it and put those things in within like a week and a half.
Yeah.
Everybody in favor of going ahead with this? And that's on all 4 directions.
Well, I don't know about all 4. Like I said, there's people that study this all the time, and just somebody needs to look at it.
Away working on swinging bridges.
I know. Well, that's true.
What
the maintenance of.
That work? Let's go from there.
Okay?
Thank you.
So I
That's all I
got,
got.
I got one question.
Yes, sir.
So are you doing any first doses tomorrow?
No.
Just second?
Second doses all day. Start at 8, ending at 3:30.
Yeah. Right.
So, all right. Thank you.
Clinics through the 24th.
Pardon me?
You've got clinics every Wednesday through the 24th.
Yes, sir. Yep, scheduled out to the 24th. Again, we're planning for those, but I just told you the supply, we only know Friday before what we're getting. So I don't want to be the person to make that phone call to tell people, but you got to plan something. So that's kind of where we're at.
Mr. Weaver says that we should ask them for all 4, all the way around rumble strips. That seems to make sense. Also, just to point out, Madison's got 13,230 people or something. 2,470 is a pretty substantial portion of the population that's getting the COVID vaccine. That speaks so well of everybody that's working with you. John.
Like I said, I told you a long time ago, these people, the whole county stepped up.
Absolutely great.
All right.
Thank you. Roger?
I don't have anything.
All right. Mr. Carpenter, you represent the planning commission tonight?
I was honored with that duty.
Yes, sir.
Actually, there's been little activity in terms of applications. We have several members of the planning commission working with the broadband task force right now. Both of our standing committees are working on things. One of them is working on potential fee schedules for commercial solar power, special use applications. Right now, there isn't any, and they're considering that. The second standing committee is working on a question about political signs and also working on trying to make some determination about when and or if the planning commission really needs to see a complete VDOT or health department approval before an application is considered.
Sure.
So that's kind of what we do.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Carpenter back there? Oh, really confronting a whole lot of stuff. Thank you.
Considering we're not doing anything else, I guess it's a good time.
Yes, it is a good time. Livingston, normally you have like a list, Livingston. I mean, come on now.
Well, I do.
All right.
The EMS, Noah's probably going to be coming to you and asking you for some more money. Because yesterday they lost their radio signal, basically their network communication from the squad house to the EMS building across the street. And after we stood in the sleet and everything and tried to figure out, and we went through the tour because we didn't know who put it in there. It turns out that it was by someone who doesn't work here anymore. But as of this morning, Gavin and I got together and we figured it out. We ended up looking up the tower, finding out what was going on. Reset some stuff and they're back online. But we certainly want to recommend, I would say, if Noah's in agreement, to go ahead and get that Comcast connection ran over to that side. Especially since they're talking about moving out of the shed and going over there. But we were lucky to figure that out because it was buried in their stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Working on the data jacks and the power for the 410 building. And this week, later in the week, we're going to be hooking up the contractors and the audio visual people for this room so that they can get that stuff put in there. We'll have our data in place 1 week before we move down there. Everything should be up and running and tested. And I'm taking around people now to do bids for the closed circuit TV and potentially the entry systems for this building and that building. And I think later on, MJ will talk to you about possible fiber between here and the E911 center. Just putting out fires, the rest of it.
Good. Anybody got anything for Livingston? MJ?
So let's talk about this first, since Brewster's brought it up. I think the goal originally was to try to have a fiber connection to the two new buildings upon move-in, and that wasn't feasible. So there's gonna be a radio connection initially, but the goal is still to get some kind of fiber connection. And there's different ways that you can go about doing that. Bruce worked on this. One is through Sager connections directly into those buildings. Over a 5-year period of time, there would be a monthly cost related to that. That cost would be $68,000. ANS came back with a proposal that would run fiber on power poles down Main Street and connect 410 and 414 to the existing Sager connection in the E911 building. And it's a one-time cost. It's not ongoing. It's just, you build the connection and it's there. And the total cost for that is, their quote is $33,613. They do feel that this is a time-sensitive thing because it takes a while to get this set up, et cetera, and they're looking for an answer from us relatively soon. They said they have several large spring cabling jobs, and if we want this done, then we need to get it on their schedule. So the question is, do you want, my recommendation has always been with the budgetary position or the financial position of this county is that from a capital point of view, you're relatively well positioned because you've got pretty large capital reserves in fund balance. But from an operating budget perspective, we always, it's hard to get that budget to balance every year. So anytime that you can do something and charge it to capital and not have it be an ongoing operating expense is something I would recommend. And this happens to be significantly cheaper. So I have to look at the numbers because there's two things that there's money still sitting in the capital budget that hasn't been appropriated yet. Some of it's related to, we've been borrowing money from the down payment that was originally appropriated in July. We're using little pieces of that to pay for other things. There's also $30,000 that was originally allocated to the sheriff, which I believe was paid for through CARES. So, or one of the grants that they have. So there's money in the capital budget, I think, that can pay for all of the things that were talked about here. The ambulance upgrade, the shelter, and this. And my question, I would, if you want to do that, then I need to, I may need to move some money around, which will require a supplement, but you also need to appropriate it by resolution. So I would suggest if you want to do that, that I do that.
Obviously, your comments on this?
No, this has been in the wind for a good long while, and it's, I think it's clear that you can do this calculation of pay by the month for 5 years, or have a capital project. And as I recall, the ANS was far better, even though that does come with a maintenance component. Yeah, this will move us towards have a good fiber, at least between this complex and downtown. And on the other end, I think Brian Gordon is working on doing something between the new tower site on Hoover Ridge and the sheriff's department. So that should put the backbone in the south end, we hope.
Don't want to pursue this and have MJ come with the supplemental to connect. I mean, it seems like this is something we need to address frequently. Come next meeting, please.
So then in addition to that, we had our Tyler kickoff meeting last week. Stephanie and I and Bruce spent most of last Wednesday on a long telephone or long meeting with Tyler and with the people from Cherry Baptist Digital. And the plan right now is what they wanted to work on was overall planning And they also wanted to develop a stakeholder presentation, which they want to present to whoever is in charge of IT governance for the county. As I mentioned at the last meeting, we need to, they have asked us to give them some information about overall structure of decision-making and oversight related to IT decisions. And that meeting we had last week actually kind of helped me define some things or come up with some recommendations, and I've talked to Stephanie about them. I think what you told me last meeting was you wanted that to go to the full IT committee and get their approval and then come back to you. So what I would like to do is get that out to hopefully get that organized next week and then come back at the next board meeting with what the recommendation is. But it's basically, I can tell you what, I mean, it's basically having this IT group, which is like a 5 or 6 person group, meet, at a high level, maybe once a quarter, and then having steering committees made up of 2 or 3 people, 3 voting people that make decisions about specific things. And I'll get more into that a little bit more. I'll write something up, and the goal is to get that out to everyone and get a meeting scheduled next week on that so that we can approve it and get the back.
Yeah, you got my message last week, right?
Yeah.
And then the weather and stuff got in the way.
Yeah.
That's what I was.
Yeah, well, I mean, actually talking to them, trying to do this without talking to them kind of it helped me understand a little bit more what they want. But they have a presentation that they're requesting from their side that they want to make to our stakeholder. So that needs to be organized, and they've got a process in place that they're not going to move forward until they do all this, because they want consensus and understanding. I'm also still working with Cherry Decker to try to figure out when to schedule the Laserfish and Avidity kickoff meetings, which we have not had yet. I am concerned that, I think they need to be staggered. I don't think we could do all 3 at the same time.
I thought Laserfish was last week.
Huh?
I thought Laserfish was last week.
Laserfish is not this good.
Okay.
And what else is it going to say? I don't know. I can't remember. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Anybody have any questions for MJ?
And I am still working on numbers related to the budget, numbers related to supplements, and ongoing numbers related to the general ledger, which is not an insignificant task right now. I have to say that one other thing, we do have interviews set up on Friday for hopefully new candidates for the accounting manager, and there are at least 2 candidates where people in the county already know them. So we've gotten some feedback already related to 2 of them. I have anyway.
Good, great.
Yeah.
Something we need to do for a minute. Anybody got any questions for MJ? All right. I think we've hit everybody. Old business. Anybody have any old business? No old business. Going to new business. The Tobbs, you want to talk about the projects and topping funds?
Yes, sir. The topics committee met just before this meeting and had good discussion. In summary, a proposal was put forward to have a spay and neuter program. Would cost about $6,500. The hope is that this would take care of about 40 cats, is the estimate. And I believe the committee was recommending in favor of that. Another proposal was put forward to paint the animal shelter. This would put a paint job on the building that's more than 13 years old now, they determined. Some disparaging remarks were made about the color of paint and who selected that paint and so forth. And so The idea is to freshen it, probably in gray and white, or maybe some Madison blue tones, as it were. That was a contractor price, and so the committee asked that 3 prices be obtained and then come back to the committee for that recommendation. A third proposal was put forward to use toppings money to build a dog park at Hoover Ridge. There are some issues with this. I guess the big one is that there's not enough money in the topping fund with the prior 2 projects to cover both of those and this with the numbers given. There's also the idea that there would be the animal shelter money would be used for building, constructing a road and a parking lot at Hoover Ridge, which is not directly related to animals, and so there were some concerns there. The idea that came forward was that maybe the Parks and Rec folks could apply for grant money to defray some of this cost and come back to the group for further consideration at a later date. So the upshot of it is a recommendation for funding for the spay and neuter clinic, $6,500 from the topic committee.
While we were sitting here, Amber found, what, $1.2 million worth of grants that go to putting in dog parks. Jerry said that Jerry or Gerald and Connie said they were going to go back and they were going to look at some grants. The idea is to leverage the existing funds that we have in the topping as matching funds potentially for doing this moving forward. And that will make the most bang for a buck.
Maybe I could, just to be thorough, Gary Mish from the Mad Cats group did come forward. He made a suggestion that maybe his group could offer the spay and neuter for cats at a lower rate per cat than what our quotes indicate from Dr. Pfaff's practice. Conversation was that his group deals with a different sort of cats, and so that they're lower cost to spay and neuter feral cats than what was the word, spay and neuter, the more adoptable cats that we are processing at the animal shelter. So it's almost 2 different things. So the idea is that we've got 2 programs and 2 efforts, and maybe together we'll be able to get more cats than any single program can on its own.
There you go. The one I think we can go ahead and approve tonight, just to get the process going, is the $6,500 for the spay and neuter program. And it's a bunch, yes. But we're trying. We all think about the $6,500.
I'm opposed to it. I just can't see us putting out $6,500.
It is coming from the topping fund, which is designated.
I mean, I'm against it. I'm just against it. I think we can use that money for something else.
It does have to be used at the end.
I know.
Yes, ma'am.
Use it for something else at the end.
So we have authorized money for the spay and neuter program
Previously.
Previously.
I think it was 2 years ago.
to the tune of
We did about the same amount of animals. Dogs are, I think, a little more expensive, and what Greg quoted us was 30 cats the last time and 20 dogs.
And this time there's no dogs. It's all
Just cats. Topping fund currently, we did already fund the play yard. So the current balance in the topping fund is $41,558.
Let's see. I think it's a pretty important program. I don't know, I can't put my finger on the value of $6,500. So that Amber, is that
Yeah, so it broke down to
$163 or
Per
something.
cat.
Per cat, maybe 162.
which is pretty standard. Mad Catch was here, he said does it a little bit cheaper than that.
You can take them to Green Madison out, the place in Rutherford and get it on whole lot cheaper.
Yeah, so what this is a voucher program for only citizens of Madison, so no one else can use it outside of the county.
And they would be going to, Madison Companion Animal. And that's who I guess we're working our medical license for that. That's kind of the idea.
That's the recommendation from the topping.
Toppings for me is $6,500. Let's
So the
face
way
it,
it works is, so you go to the shelter and get a voucher. You get
These are
cat
feral.
food.
No,
these
not
are
just
feral.
feral. They said
These are
though, that was kind of the interesting part, is that where I guess we're not supposed to use the word feral anymore. Non-domestic
Community
cats. Community cats, there you go. Thank you. Community cats, are not the ones, a lot of these are like household pets that are just not spayed and neutered. And that's who goes and uses the animal shelter. That's the way you
They're
took it.
given at the actual animal hospital. So they're typically clients of, patients of animal health, the companion medicine.
But it's based on the ability to pay. If I go down there and I adopt a cat, I can,
That's different. These are already, people own these cats, they're their cats. They're house cats.
If you adopt a cat, I'm almost sure that they
They're
come spay,
automatically
they come
spayed
spay and neutered, and you have to pay whatever that adoption fee encompasses that.
okay.
This is roving,
$85.
this is roving household cats that are domesticated, potentially being spayed and neutered.
I paid for mine, it's good.
I'm
sorry.
I don't know what this is. Some people need help getting the cats spayed and neutered. That's where we're at. Y'all want to do it or not? It doesn't.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I mean, I'll take the recommendation of the committee and move that we approve the spay and neuter program for $6,500 to come out of the top.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There you go. Good, Ms. Fry? Thank you, ma'am. I apologize. I'm gonna back up real quick. Larissa's on here. Larissa, is anything going on at Commonwealth Attorney's office? Hold on. We barely can hear you. Livingston's working, right?
Let's try now.
Try now. Yes, ma'am. Do we have any questions for Clarissa? Thank you, Clarissa. All right, now we're going to the sheriff's proposed signage and towing ordinance in the town of Madison. Mr. Weaver, are you on the phone? Do you want to talk about this at all? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Weaver. Anybody got anything, Mr. Weaver? Mr. Gregg has passed out a code section. Mr. Gregg, talk about this for a second.
The real question here, because this involves, a situation that is located entirely within the town limits. The Virginia code puts some limitations on what the county can do in terms of enforcement. There's really two ways to do this. One is the town can pass its own ordinance with regard to parking. Or the town could agree, by resolution, it just, the statute, and if you look, I actually circled it, towards the, back. You know, what it says is, no power or authority conferred upon the board of supervisors of counties by this section shall be exercised within corporate limits of any incorporated town, except by agreement with the town council. And I am not aware of any such agreement. It would seem to me the better way to proceed on this would be to wait until we have some authority from the town of Madison agreeing that the county can enforce this. The other way, of course, for the town to do this would be for them to pass their own parking ordinances. But once we get to this point, I will rely on the sheriff and other interested parties, and we will try to come up with either a new ordinance or whatever might be necessary to try to address this situation.
What about his secondary request talking about a towing ordinance? Same deal.
It's under the same.
There you go. All right.
But, Mr. Gregg, if the town passes their ordinance, towing or parking ordinance, then the county would have to authorize the sheriff's department to enforce it, or no?
The sheriff is the law enforcement agency both for the town of Madison and for Madison County.
Okay, I did not know that.
Yeah, if you commit a crime in the town of Madison, the sheriff's office takes care of it.
All right. So, hey, Sheriff, you still on there? This is Cardi. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can.
All right. Yeah, let him go through it again.
Hold on. Go.
Sure.
Microphone. There you go. You hear him now?
Well, Sheriff, count your blessings that you didn't have to hear me. But in any event, Virginia Code Section 15.2-1201 governs this issue. And it says that the authority of a Board of Supervisors of counties can only be exercised within the corporate limits of an incorporated town by agreement with the town council. The statute is not clear as to the form that that agreement takes. I would assume that at a minimum, it would have to be a resolution from the town council. I would think that the better way to handle this for purposes of clarity would be for the town to pass its own ordinance. The sheriff's office is the only law enforcement agency operating within Madison County, with the exception, of course, of the state police. So the Madison County Sheriff's Office is already the law enforcement officer for the town of Madison. If the town does not want to pass something, pass their own ordinance, then they can pass a resolution authorizing the county to enforce this on their behalf.
Sheriff, do you have comments on that?
Sheriff, have you heard from the town council as to what their intention is with this? Okay. To advise everyone, I reached out to Maynard Sipe, who is the town attorney for the town of Madison. I sent him a letter actually this afternoon, kind of setting this up for the town to let us know what they intend to do.
Yeah, I've got, so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
All right. So, Sheriff, I'd have to differ with you framing this as a parking issue. In my opinion, this is not a parking issue. It's a safety issue. Now, I have for years seen people parking right in front of the courthouse, and I'm thinking Timothy McVeigh from years ago. And I don't think parking in front of the courthouse is a safe place to park, considering we've got parking across the street behind DSS. We got plenty of parking, and I'm up to here with people fighting for the first parking spot in front of Anytime Fitness. Makes no sense. Walk a little bit, and I do agree that with what's in there. Now, I don't know how we get there exactly, and I do think that the town should take the lead on this first. But I do agree with the fact that from where Clarissa's office is, down in front of the courthouse, down to the Eagle office, should be no parking on there. I mean, I oftentimes am headed out to the farm and I need to go in the drugstore, and I just pull over and pop my door open, but that's dangerous. And when I pop my door open and bolt across the street to the drugstore, I'm jaywalking. Okay, I'm not in the little things, so I'm violating that every time, and it's dangerous. And I look at my mirror, and a lot of times I'll wait, and then you pop out. So there's really no reason for me to be doing that when the parking lot's right there, and then I could get out casually and go into the drugstore. So why do I do it? I don't know. To save myself 18 seconds.
We always thought of you as the criminal element.
That's so every day I'm violating. But so I don't know how we get there exactly, Mr. Chairman, but
What about,
I agree with the premise.
what about if Cordy and we were at the meeting on 3 Thursdays
Yeah.
ago, whatever it was. What about if Cordy and I were to work with the town and see if we can come up with something, a solution to this issue? The issue is not getting better, it's only getting worse. I do think this is a town issue. If we have to pass something and then we've got to pass an agreement also with the town, that seems to be adding a step. The town certainly can reach out to Ms. Shepherd at VDOT to ask for more signs. They've done this in the past. I know they've walked up and down Main Street. Let's see if we can communicate with the town and have them come up with something, because this is certainly within their scope of business.
Hopefully they are a government agency, just like we are, and my way of thinking is they need to take care of their business, so to speak, instead of involving the county. We shouldn't have to have departments, I don't think.
I tend to agree in the sense that since it is in the middle of town, it has gotten to a point that if myself or Cardi could offer any kind of assistance on it, then maybe we could resolve the issue quicker than willing to. Yeah, exactly. And hopefully, I mean, I would think that this is something that other localities have certainly been down this path. I mean, this is not reinventing the wheel by any means.
I'll bet you the town will go up with that.
Exactly. So they Maynard should be able to, the Maynard Sykes, the town attorney, should be able to figure this out. They should be able to pass something pretty promptly. That's my recommendation. Anybody else got anything on this? All right. Is that what the direction we want to go? See what the town does. We'll communicate with the town, see if we can get something going on.
So let's see, they're the first
Next
Thursday.
Yeah, next week. We'll talk to them next Thursday and see if we can come up with something. Whether it's parking here to there, right where it needs to be, or whatever it is. All right, any further discussion on that? Information and correspondence. Mr. Hobbs, tell us about the budget development.
I just want to skim through this pretty quick, just get a grip on where we are. Still working on compiling requests and validating those as we go. working on this business about the current personnel complement and calculating costs for staffing for the current crew. We use the idea of breakout for any kind of requests that the departments have had, so we can deal with those on an individual basis. Working on the capital budget, and Ms. Murray and Brian Daniel are working on the revenue side of the equation. The hope is that we'll be able to come to you at the March 9 meeting and maybe with the outlines of the revenue estimate and some other key items. This evening, I will look at a financial review, performance review from fiscal year 21, and highlights of that. A little bit of feedback on board priorities and some deadlines, and want to make sure everybody's aware that we do have preliminary school board budget requests and a request from the health department. So see those are the two major outstanding budgets that you're not here focused from. And I've done a good run up on all the budget requests, so the personnel requests we received today without full process. So for the performance review, there have been some major misses when it comes to revenue estimates and some major misses when it came to expenditures. Good news, they're all virtually all positive, so we're in pretty good shape there. The general fund revenue variance was $80,000 negative, but the general fund expenditure variance was $3 million positive. So, we did bring in less money, but a lot of that was tied up with grants from the welfare and the Services Act. We were lower than expected on a lot of things when it comes to paying out money. So that's another money was very much balanced from last year. On the general fund side, the school board, you could argue did better than we did. They tightened their belts and their revenues were way down. They matched that with a lower expense budget in these major categories that coming out of the retribution. But I think the thing to look at is the variances. Yeah, revenues were down, but expenses were down much lower. So that's the net effect is we had a good last year. You might consider commission service. There were some things we didn't do from a financial perspective. So if you don't have any questions, now I'll go ahead and
We'll review and come with us questions if you've got them. All right.
The next thing is this business about county goals and priorities. I know that you don't want to go through this line by line tonight, but it's a good practice to put some sort of timeline expectation on some of these goals and priorities. The problem is we don't have anyone when we're going to be through with the pandemic and we know it's going to be past the peak. So that's a practice. I know part of that. We've got this business about improving access to cell phone and broadband. Obviously, that's going to take many years of effort to make an improvement there. We can project the completion dates on several of our private or internal projects, but there's it's kind of squishy. You know what I mean? So that's scratching my head about what to do about this. The couple of things that came up since the back in January. This business about increasing the child care options. Something that task force has been stood up. This was not included in the earlier list, but I think we would want to see this included in some format. And the thing that's really come up since then is this business about the OSA. We'll report in closed session, but this is going to be a major effort for the county for the next 6 months to a year. Always that ought to be on this list of something. So that's where we are on just to give you a snapshot of the superintendent's proposed budget. She's proposing $2,399 less next year than this year's budget. They're doing that through a number of ways. Dr. Benall talked about this at the last meeting. This still needs to go through the school board's process for hearing an official school board request. I'm taking that for other things are at play. I think right now the state legislature is talking about raises and all this kind of stuff. So things are a little bit in flux still. So this is not a final position being stretched. I think we've got enough to move forward without getting the school folks in to give a presentation to the board. But if you feel like you want that, we can arrange that maybe at a later date once the school board is so don't have to make decisions on that. Similarly, the health department did send their paperwork in a while back. They're asking for $5,000 more, a little more than about 3% budget increase. They say they're willing to present if we require it. The board wants that, we will arrange it. I'd rather leave that one issue. Again, other decisions even on those. As far as the every year the board asks for a run-up on changes to personnel, I've made an attempt at that. I think I counted a total of 5 full-time employee position requests. There's a number of raises, some overtime, and so forth. Not a lot of good cost estimates always need to be refined. I do think that it's something that we need to get into other things associated with this. You'll remember that last year the constitutional officers were not included in the pay study, so they missed out on that adjustment as well as cost of living last year. So something that ought to be on the board list. We do have minimum wage requirements, and so although I think that effect is going to be tremendous on the county, we do need to monitor. Want to put a little money aside for the pay adjustments, but the big question mark is, again, the legislature is talking about mandatory 3% raise for teachers, a potential for bonuses and raises for state-funded positions, and other factions in the state are talking about higher rates than that. So I suppose we'll have to wait for this to go this course in the legislature, because these are certainly benchmarks. So in the front here, I've got a whole series of issues that need to be resolved, but you can walk through that. But the thing I want to clarify this evening is this business about running out on the budget calendar. We want to have a little bit of a budget workshop at the end of the March 9th meeting. So we're going to cancel next week's meeting. Have the planned budget workshop on the 19th that should have a fairly well resolved budget at that point to discuss. And then have the official proposal presentation on March 23, which will put us in position to have hearings. The way this works is you have to have a hearing. There's a schedule for that. Looking forward with a balanced budget. At that point, the board is certainly free to move money around and reduce the budget, but you can't increase. That makes sense. So even though we make recommendations, you have hearings, and all that, the board is not forced to look at what's funding. That makes sense. So, any questions or observations? I would like to, I guess, get some on the schedule.
Very okay with that. Yeah, all this stuff is on our stick, right? Yeah.
No, that stuff's not on the stick.
This is.
I can give her a copy.
Oh, okay.
Can I get a copy of that? I wasn't provided this information. Very appreciate it. Thank you.
Anybody have any more questions? I just need to review it.
Also, I need to understand, other than, I know that I still have outstanding departmental budgets that have to be provided. I have to have a pretty good understanding and relatively quickly, if I am going to be doing any of the number generation related to any of the things on the schedule, because I haven't heard about anything really that. And my schedule is going to be rapidly filling up with things related to the ERP. So.
We'll get something to you promptly. No, are you done with yours budget?
No.
All right, good, just checking. Anything else? Any questions, Rob? Thank you for the list and the update. All right. Anybody else got any information correspondence? It is good to see the school board coming in below what was last year was. I've never seen this and never believed it would actually happen. It is great. Public comment. Anybody? Public comment from I'm not seeing any public comment on the Vimeo or the GoToMeeting or.
Well, there's one from Tracy, putting on my chamber hat, would happily help fundraise to that end as well. I guess she's talking about that to Kevin McCaney. Thanks, Tracy. I think the local community members are anxious to generate funds and get the Lindsay Lane Bridge open again.
There you go. Maybe point Mr. Howell in that direction as well. All right. Hobbs, what do you have as information?
I asked Ligon Webb to develop a little report on the status of zoning lawsuits. I think he happens to keep getting these questions about what's happening here, what's happening there. These are the ones that are in circuit court. He's got a whole other series that are being processed in some people. So this is fairly complicated. I think a watershed event is supposed to happen in April. Wrote his decision on whether in April applies or not.
All right.
And for the county administration project, for the cost estimate in the package, for that, we're going very well on that. We have a couple of things coming. Asked the folks that are moving down the hill to put together cost estimates for furniture. We're moving down the hill, hopefully on April 9, April 10. We could have furniture moved and ready to be there for that. So we can get on some of that and get, of course, with that, how all that together. Another thing that's coming to pass is the recovering of the seats in here. The plan is we will get some prices on that. We might bring it back to you, but this is somehow it's done. So it's
Probably should recover the seat, sad as it makes me. All right, any questions on any of this, Robs? Nobody's got any public comment? We do have, oh, go ahead, Jana.
Hey, Janet Jackson from the Free Clinic. I'm the interim executive director. I just want to say thank you for your help on the parking issue and the safety issue up and down Main Street. If there's anything we can do to assist, I'm happy to.
Anybody else? All right, we do have a closed session, may have one action after this. And you're gonna read both sets, right? Yeah, but I just don't. Yeah, there you go. We should be able to combine the two.
MJ, remember I've got my COVID shot in the morning.
You gotta get that stuff to me. I owe it to them.
Or no, shot in the morning.
When was that?
I can call. I'll scoot back up to the office.
Wait, keep going. works.
A7 for consultation with legal counsel and agreed by staff members or consultants. Each consultation or briefing an open meeting with the first day after negotiating or litigating conflict of the body. 2.2-3711-829, discussion of the board of public contract involving the expenditure of public funds and discussion of the terms or scope of such contract, or discussion in an open session will adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body.
Second. All right, Kevin wins.
I'll let Kevin second.
All right, motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.